In this video, we're going to take a look at the HT12 by Nitesun. It promises 900 meters of throw, so we're going to take a look at this and see if it can actually throw all the way across that farm. And as you can see, it is good all the way out to 100% there. This field, HT12, and compare it to all the other throwers like the Convoy C8 and L6. It's zoomable as well, so it doesn't only throw like a C8, it can be used as a walking light or a close range light. So we'll test it out and see how it can light up right in front of us, how it looks like if we walk out there. And it's mainly a hunting light, so we took a 1-inch ring with a 1-inch standoff and threw it onto an SKS. It looks pretty good and it works pretty well. It has a forward clicky tail switch, so you can turn it on momentarily if you need, but it can also take a pressure switch if you want to use one of those as well. One cool feature is that you can swap out the LED in 21 seconds with a green, red, or UV running at 850 nanometers. I've got my IR camera looking at that building, and you can see the IR LED lights it up pretty well. It's nice and bright. So with this 66mm spherical lens, you can focus that right down to maybe 900 meters. We won't actually go that far, but it looks pretty good across this field. This package comes with a charger and an included protected battery, which is pretty nice. Everything you need to get going. Sophia from Nitesun sent this one to me for review, and she provided great customer service. She actually shipped it to where I was staying in China. So they claimed to throw 900 meters, and I tested the max beam intensity to be 185,000 candela. So that calculates to about 862 meters, which is pretty impressive. My measuring techniques may be a little bit off, so it could easily be 900 meters. And when you power it up at the farm, you can definitely see that beam straight out there. It's supposed to be a 2-degree beam, so it's basically a straight line, like a laser across that field. You do lose a lot of light using a spherical lens, because anything that doesn't hit the lens will be lost. But even though we're only outputting 243 lumens, it is focusing all that straight down that line. So you get out to 900 meters, no problem. It's not going to be that bright at 900 meters, obviously, it's like moonlight, but let's say you're shooting out to 300 meters. It'll do that no problem. So it can easily get across the distance of this farm. And if we look at this on the beam intensity profile, you can see the UTO2 sitting way down there, and you can see the HT12 towers way above it. So it can light up the near scene pretty well. It doesn't have a huge flood angle, but if you need, it can be used as a close range light. Now let's zoom it in, and let's put it at halfway. At halfway, it still is a pretty wide angle, but you can throw a little bit further out, so you can use it like this if you need. But then where it really excels is when you focus it right down to the max intensity, and now you can see it's almost like a laser beam. Very focused light. And it actually can see 100% of the way down the field to the naked eye. On the camera you might not be able to see it all, but hopefully you can see that right there. That's at the end of the field, and you may be able to see a little bit. There's some glass over there, it's reflecting the light back. Some reflectors. But the beam is so intense that you can probably tell where I'm pointing with this light. We'll do a comparison later so you can see what something like the L6 can do. But you'll see that this is a better thrower for sure. If you want a thrower of a light that you can mount, I'd say this is the one to go with. This lens definitely beats out reflector-based throwers. And we'll compare it to the L6. So we're going to bring both lights up at the same time and see when they stop. So at about 75%, I think the L6 is giving up. And then up at 100, you can still see the HT12 lighting up right to the end. Now let's bring it back, and as you can see, the intensity of the HT12 drowns out the L6 light. That's how you can tell it's more powerful. Let's hold both flashlights up in the air, and as you can see, the HT12 on the right, its intensity is much higher than the L6 on the left. You can see it just drowns it out. That's an easy way to tell which light has more intensity and can go further if you're trying to throw. And you can also see how narrow that beam is, how focused. It's just a straight line of light all the way out there. That's what that 66mm spherical lens can do for you. And as you bring it down, you can just see it's lighting up a little bit further there. And bring it back down. Now we've got the C8. C8 is a very good thrower, but the HT12 makes it look like it's just not as intense at distances. You can see that that square outperforms the C8 spot in intensity. Now we have the Convoy M3. Very powerful light. 3000 Kelvin, but it is not a thrower because of its small reflector. And you can see here it lights up a large area, but does not throw very well. So it can only kind of make it out to like halfway, and then it just dies off. HT12, again, thrower of choice. Convoy S11, 3000 Kelvin. Not much of a thrower. It only makes it out to about 25-30% of the field. So if you want a thrower, S11 is not the one. The HT12 can flood in front of you. Similarly to the S11, you just have to change the focus. So the HT12 is still pretty good at near, and it can do the focusing for far. That is the benefit. Now we have the DQG 26650 on the left. It is a flutter. It can throw maybe 40% because it has a huge amount of light, but as you can see, it cannot throw very far. Here's the DQG up close. HT12 is doing an okay job, but the DQG is definitely lighting up the scene a lot better on the back. Alright, now we have our cheap zoomable, and as you can see, the 66mm spherical lens is a lot bigger in diameter, and it does a much better job focusing that light down into a smaller footprint, more focused beam. So as we raise these lights, as you can see, the cheap smaller lens just can't keep up, and it just disappears at about 40%, which is not bad. And HT12 carries on. Tiny bit right there. That's basically the end of the field. And let's zoom out. So the benefit of the smaller lens is that it throws more light to the left and right. As you can see, it lights up a wider part of the scene. The HT12 lights up the scene a lot better, even though the area is not as great. It lights it up more intensely. There's a little more output in this cheap zoomable. They both can be operated with one hand and zoomed in and out. So that concludes the comparison between the HT12 and the rest of the lights I brought here. I hope that gives you a good understanding of what it can do at the farm. The max output is only 687 out the front lumens, and it slowly declines as the battery voltage decreases. It's rated for 1.5 hours of runtime, and it will run that long, but every hour you're going to want to change your battery so you can keep that output nice and high. As you can see, it tapers off pretty low as the voltage drops. The LED they use for white is the XPO HI, and that's a nice high intensity LED. They actually advertise it as one of the most powerful LEDs if they focus it down to a 4-degree beam. They're saying 100,000 candela, and we are pushing almost 200,000 out of this 2-degree beam, which makes sense because you're cutting the beam down into a more focused beam. So they've definitely used the right LED for the purpose of throwing in intensity. 6500 Kelvin is kind of cool, but if you want to retain your night vision, go ahead and use red. I'll test out the red and green and infrared here. Now on, it's fully zoomed out, and now I'll zoom it in. It's halfway there, and now it's fully zoomed in, and I can't tell where I'm hitting, so I think I'm hitting the building right now. I'll move up a little bit. I'll move up a little bit more. Now I'll scan back down, and actually I'll scan back up slowly in a couple different areas so we can stop it and check how it looks. Now I should be hitting the reflect site. Should bounce back like crazy. Now I'm going to zoom it out and see how it looks. 80% zoomed out, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30. Oh, now I'm all the way zoomed out. Now I'll zoom back in. Alright, that concludes the infrared testing. Let's turn that off and we will swap over to another module. Alright, here's the red module. I will zoom out completely first. You can see it in the reflect sight and on the camera. Now we'll zoom that sucker in. That is red. So preserving your night vision. You can light up that door, no problem. The whole left side of the building, no problem. That reflect sight's super bright. Now let's hit the flagpole, no problem. It lights up the flag a lot. So this is a lot of light getting thrown out there. Let's try the tree on the right. Yep, lights up that tree on the right. The further tree even gets lit up by the red. Red's doing a very good job lighting up these trees. Like this tree right here above the reflect sight is very difficult to light up with white light, but the red is doing a very good job. Even this tree on the left of the pole, which is really far away, is being lit up. Now let's try this brighter, closer tree. It's being lit up and the car's reflectors are actually lighting up a bit too. Wow, this is a very powerful thrower if you need red light, infrared light, or green light. Yeah, all those trees are being lit up. This is very powerful. Pretty cool. Lights up the field, no problem too. These LEDs are smaller, so it fires green out there, no problem. Lighting up the door, left side of the building, right side of the building, and that reflect sight again. Let's go up the flagpole. The red works better on the flag, obviously, because there's red color on it. The green only lights up the white part. The tree on the right, it can light up. The tree further to that is lit up above the reflect sight, and then the tree to the right of that, it can light up, no problem. So if you want green, this flashlight can fire green anywhere you need. Here you can see the trunk splits into branches there. This thing lets you see all the definition of that tree. So this is a very bright green thrower. So let's compare it to the Convoy L6, a very good thrower. So here's the building with the HT12. Here's the L6. It lights it up very well. Here's the flag with the HT12. Here's the Convoy L6 at the flag. So it doesn't light it up as well as the HT12 because the HT12 is just way more intense. Look at that. Than the L6. L6 throws light everywhere. Now let's take a look at that tree. Let's say you want to see that trunk split into two branches. The L6, it lets you see it, but it floods everything else up as well. M3 has a hard time lighting up the flag, but it still lights it up. But the HT12 lights it up way more intense. Let's do the tree. M3's having an issue lighting it up, but the HT12 does it no problem. The M3 is quite a bit of power, so it does light it up, but it's not a very focused light. So it doesn't have the intensity of the HT12. It's got a nice large 66mm spheric lens, which I chose because I wanted the highest throw distance. I wanted to see what it was like to get a 900-meter throw light, and I'm definitely impressed by its distance. If you want to mount it to a Picatinny or Weaver rail, you just need a 1-inch scope mount with at least a 1-inch standoff so you can handle that large head diameter. They say it's 1.5 meter impact resistance, and I believe that because after we've taken it apart we can see it's high quality inside. And there's a bunch of O-rings, so it's definitely resistant to heavy rain, at least IPX4. It only has one mode, and that's great for hunting guns because you take a shot, you don't want it accidentally switching to another mode. It's just on or off for this one. Probably made out of acrylic, like any other TIR optic, and they've recessed that enough so you don't scratch it if you put it down like this on its head. Large O-ring that seals the head against the spherical lens. They use copper MCPCB boards for all of the LEDs. Look at that thick copper board. Used a good amount of heatsink compound. Lots of threads there for you to transfer all the heat to the body. And they have this friction fitted ring here for you to solder on your driver. And that's a 17mm driver. And that's a 16mm LED board with two good machine screws that hold it in. So if you want to replace the 17mm driver with the Budget Lightform X5X6 driver, this is temperature controlled, has a FET, and a 7135. So you get the highest of modes and the lowest of modes with good temperature control. The red, green, and infrared LED can only handle about 1.5 amps, but that'll work for the XPL HI because it's on a copper board. If it's direct thermal path, then for sure it'll handle it. Or you can just replace it with a good 16mm. So you'll want to desolder the LED and then stick in a nail or something to punch this out. You gotta run along the edge of the pill and then just hammer out the ring here. Then you can desolder your driver and replace it pretty easily. The plastic piece on the front is threaded, so you just have to twist that off, and it has a nice O-ring to keep it in place. They put nice machine marks on the front of this pill so that you can get grip and twist it off and replace these within 20 seconds. So they put good thought into the design of this thing. It's easy to replace the driver, LED, everything's held together properly. Definitely attention to detail and high quality stuff. It's nice that they put a forward clicky tail switch on there because you don't have to click it on before it turns on, which allows you to quickly, momentarily turn it on when you need it. So that was a good design choice, and it shows that they put a lot of thought into this flashlight. And there is a plug for the pressure switch, but I wasn't able to test it. My sample wasn't sent with one. So I couldn't test it with their pressure switch, but I jimmy rigged an old one that I had for an old C8. And it just basically runs it through the entire cable. There's no MOSFET in there or anything. It's just complete bypass of the tail switch. So once you plug it in, you can no longer use the tail switch. And because there's all this voltage drop through this cable, you're going to lose more than half of your lumen output. So definitely don't recommend it with the pressure switch if you want full lumen output. So you're just shorting through the tail switch like that. So that's all it is. And they got a pretty stiff spring on the back here. Keep that battery in place. And they did leave enough space in there so that if you do take a shot with a 308 or something and it presses down on it, the battery just presses up against the surface instead of smashing into the spring. If it hits the spring, it'll dent the battery, and that's no good. Here's a quick tip for your flashlights with front springs. When it's mounted to a gun, as soon as you fire, the recoil is going to force the battery into the front. You don't want that spring compressing and crushing your button. So you can add some to it like this, and that will absorb a lot of that shock. The rear spring won't get as much force because it pushes against your shoulder. It's this front spring that really matters. This buffer can also be added to any everyday carry flashlight. If you drop it on the front of the flashlight, it'll smash the 18650 into the front, and it's enough to bend your front button. So add that buffer to your front spring if you notice a lot of your buttons are getting pressed in. Now a beam angle of 2 degrees is insane, but that's definitely what it is. And it just looks crazy intense when it's right up close to you. The field angle when you flood it is pretty big at 28 degrees, and it does have a little bit of spill light, which I'd call peripheral lighting, out to 52 degrees. It's actually comparable to the other lights. If you look at this graph, the peripheral angle is similar to the UTO2, which is at 60 degrees, but the field angle is even better at 28 degrees than the UTO2. So if you're using this light as a walking light, it's great when you have it opened up at 28 degrees, way better than the 19 degrees of the UTO2. So it's cool that it's a dynamic, zoomable light. That's why I've always liked zoomable lights. You can use it for throwing or for flooding nearby. A fixed focus reflector-based light like the UTO2 or the C8, those are difficult lights to use camping because sometimes you just need to use it up close and they're way too bright with that hot spot. They're purpose-built and they're just for throwing. You can dim it down and try to use it as a walking light, but it just is not that comfortable. So it's pretty nice to see that the HT12 performs well as a thrower and a zoomable light. This thing is similar to the UTO2 and weighs between the C8 and the UTO2, right there at 300 grams loaded. This makes sense because the UTO2 uses a 26650 and that's what makes it that much heavier, and it's similarly sized to the C8. Its length is a little bit bigger because of that lens and the forward tail clicky switch, but its weight is still less. So if you look at that, it's a good compromise. So they've designed a pretty good light, but then when you look at that beam intensity profile, it towers above everything else as a thrower. So it does a great job as a thrower. Can go into flood and then let you get home no problem. We checked the flickering of this thing. It was 0.04, which is very low. The SVM, or the stroboscopic visibility measurement, is 0.27, so you're not going to be able to see any flicker from it. Anything 1 or above, you should be able to see flicker. So in conclusion, this is a highly recommended light, and it really impressed me by how it could throw across those fields. The L6 and the C8, or the UTO2 in my eyes, are great throwers. I didn't think this one would outshine it that much, but it did. And with 240 lumens, I was pretty sure it wasn't going to. So it was nice to test out. That 2 degree beam actually does a very good job of concentrating that light, controlling it down that field, and lighting up all the way to the other end of the farm. Didn't think it would do it, but it was good to see what 240 lumens could do. So if you're looking for a very good light to mount on your rifle, or you just want a zoomable thrower of a light, then definitely check out the Nitesun HT12. If you want a smaller light, check out the HT09. I'm not sure how that's going to perform, but maybe if you guys want, I can test out those other models as well. So again, thank you Sophia for sending this light to me, and Nitesun for having me review this. Definitely enjoyed reviewing this light, especially the UV and the red and the green. That was cool. I haven't played around with those kind of LEDs, but for hunting I think a lot of people will find this useful, and it was good to review this light. We tried to make the C8 Sunshine a thrower of a light, but it didn't even come close to anything like this, and I couldn't find a good UV LED to put in there. So this thing is purpose built, and if you need a good UV thrower of a light, I think the HT12 is one of your best bets. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Check the description for some contact information and how to get this light. Thanks for watching, and I hope that helps.